That about the J6 people too, though, right? That's what they're going to say on the other side. That is weaponized.
I'm not referring to that. I'm talking about the New York trial, and now the Democrats on our side there were some that were gleeful, calling it like now he's a convicted felon and those things, and now for our party we were talking about criminal justice, and we are now talking about second chances, and now all of a sudden now you're like, well, he's a convicted felon and all these things. And now clearly, again, both of those trials, the Hunter Biden one and the trial in New York for Trump, that was politically motivated, and those kinds of charges would have never been brought unless one side could realize that they could weaponize that.
Imagine a world where the lines between politics, media, and the law blur in the most dramatic ways possible. Senator John Fetterman, known for his fearless political stances on justice and equality, is suddenly at the center of a legal storm that no one saw coming. But this isn't about policy debates or legislation. It's about a lawsuit against one of the most well-known talk shows in America, The View. Yes, you heard that right. A lawsuit that's now making waves across both political and entertainment spheres. But what's really at stake here, and why does it matter to you? Buckle up, because this story has some shocking twists that are sure to keep you on the edge of your seat.
They had a placebo group, and they had a vaccine group because they wanted for military readiness to see if the flu shot was prophylactic against coronavirus. What they found is actually the people who got the flu shot were 36% more likely to get coronavirus. And that's not a lone study. We found 6 other major studies that say the same thing. If you get the flu shot, you're more likely to get coronavirus. Look, all you have to do, Alan, and this is what Cochrane said, is look what's happened to longevity in the elderly since we started mandating the flu shot to elderly people. Those are the people who their life expectancy has dramatically gone down as the flu shot proliferated. And if you see
But before we dive into the lawsuit that's sending shockwaves through the media, let's take a step back and look at the man at the center of this storm, Senator John Fetterman. For those of you who don't know, Fetterman is no stranger to controversy or high-stakes politics. The Democratic senator from Pennsylvania has built a reputation as one of the most vocal and fearless political figures of his generation. His outspoken advocacy for social justice, healthcare reform, and economic equality has earned him a dedicated following, but it's his unapologetic stance on challenging the establishment and calling out the political elite that has turned heads across the country. Fetterman's rise to prominence wasn't your typical political story. He didn't come from a life of privilege. He came from humble beginnings, working his way through the ranks of local politics before claiming his spot in the Senate. His physical appearance, with tattoos and a scruffy beard, has often been a talking point in the media, but it's his fierce commitment to his beliefs and his no-nonsense attitude that's won him supporters, especially among those who feel left behind by traditional politics. But while his political views are often celebrated, Fetterman has also faced heavy criticism, especially from those who see him as a disruptor in the world of American politics. He's not afraid to take on anyone, whether they're on his side of the aisle or not, and that's exactly what made his recent clash with the media so explosive.
After all, and people do have sympathy for that, but a lot of people are angry with him about it. What do you say?
Oh, well, I think it's undeniable that the case against Hunter Biden was really politically motivated, but I also think it's true that the trial in New York for Trump that was political as well too. Now it's that, and in both cases, I think a pardon is appropriate, and I really think collectively, America's confidence in these kinds of institutions have been damaged by these kinds of cases, and we cannot allow these kinds of institutions to be weaponized against our political opponents. And it's very clear both trials were politically motivated and weaponized that on the other side.
Now, let's get into the heart of the matter. What happened on The View that led to this legal bombshell? The episode seemed like any other at first. A lively discussion filled with political commentary, a few sharp jabs, and the usual heated exchanges that the show is known for. But things quickly took a turn when Fetterman appeared on set. The audience was ready for a lively debate, but what transpired next was anything but routine. During the taping, Fetterman, known for his quick wit and no-holds-barred attitude, found himself in a heated exchange with The View host, Sonny Hostin. Hostin, never one to shy away from controversy, made some pointed comments that Fetterman immediately took issue with. While the specifics of their conversation are still under wraps due to ongoing legal proceedings, it's clear that something was said that struck a nerve with the senator. The remarks made by Hostin were, in Fetterman's view, not just rude but defamatory. He felt that her words misrepresented him and his political positions in a way that could cause long-lasting damage to his reputation. To say things escalated quickly would be an understatement. Before anyone knew it, Fetterman was filing a lawsuit against Hostin and The View's producers, accusing them of spreading false and damaging statements about him on national television. This wasn't just a difference of opinion or a regular political clash. This was a full-on public confrontation that turned personal, and this wasn't the kind of thing that can be brushed aside. Fetterman wasn't backing down, he was taking action. But what was it about the words spoken on that set that pushed him to this extreme measure? What could have been said that was so damaging? Stay tuned, because we're about to dive deeper into the fallout from that fateful episode. As soon as Fetterman filed his lawsuit, the media frenzy surrounding this story took off like wildfire. What seemed like a routine political clash was now a full-fledged legal battle, with serious consequences not just for the individuals involved, but for the broader conversation around media ethics, free speech, and accountability. Fetterman's lawsuit accused Hostin and The View producers of defamation, claiming that their statements were not only false, but were made with malicious intent to harm his reputation. In his filing, Fetterman argued that these comments misrepresented his political views and personal character, severely damaging his public image. This wasn't just a slap on the wrist. He was seeking significant damages, and he wasn't going to let this one slide. As the lawsuit made its way through the legal system, both sides were gearing up for a lengthy battle. For Fetterman, this case wasn't just about seeking financial compensation or clearing his name. It was about setting a precedent, holding media outlets accountable for the words they broadcast to millions of viewers. This case could challenge the very fabric of journalistic integrity and force a reevaluation of how public figures are treated in the media. On the other hand, The View and Hostin's legal team wasted no time in firing back, arguing that Hostin's comments were protected under the First Amendment, essentially defending their right to speak freely and express opinions on public figures. They maintained that her remarks were simply part of the spirited debates that have become the hallmark of the show. Hostin even publicly stated that she was simply exercising her right to speak her truth and that she did not intend to harm Fetterman in any way. This rapidly developing legal drama wasn't just about the courtroom, it was fueling debates across social media, news outlets, and even among public figures. Was Fetterman right to sue, or was this just an attempt to silence free speech? And what would the implications of this case be for future media battles involving public figures? The stakes couldn't have been higher, but the more we dug into the story, the more we realized that this lawsuit was only the beginning of a much bigger conversation about media responsibility, public discourse, and the fine line between freedom of expression and defamation.
Documentary series about New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers. He said he's heartbroken about friends and family cutting him off for his controversial political views and conspiracy theories. And a lot of Americans can relate to this, especially after this last election. So, do you think it happens everywhere?
What I recall about him is when he was asked about the COVID-19 pandemic, during the height of the pandemic, when people had lost loved ones, when people's family members were missing from their Thanksgiving table, like my table, he said, "I'm immunized." And as it turns out, he was not. He had done his own research. He has his Google MD like I do. And I think he said he was allergic to something in the vaccine, but he had COVID and he was in a huddle with his teammates. And I think people felt like, wow, you don't care. You're not your brother's keeper.
This could really, this could really turn me against
a morality.
Are you telling me?
As this legal battle heats up, it raises the larger, more complex question: where should we draw the line between free speech and the responsibility that comes with wielding a platform? The case has sparked heated debates not only about Fetterman's situation, but about the role media outlets play in shaping public perception, especially when it comes to high-profile figures. The First Amendment protects free speech, but does it extend to comments that could potentially ruin someone's reputation? That's the crux of this lawsuit. Fetterman claims that The View didn't just express an opinion but went beyond the boundaries of responsible commentary and ventured into territory that could seriously harm his career and personal life. But where does opinion end and where does defamation begin? On the flip side, many argue that public figures like Fetterman, who live much of their lives under the scrutiny of the public eye, should be prepared for harsh criticism, especially when they take stances on divisive issues. Some believe that as long as the media is operating within the framework of free expression, they shouldn't be legally penalized for making controversial statements about politicians, actors, or other public personalities. After all, The View is a space for heated debate and candid opinions. But the question remains, did the show cross the line, or is this just part of the territory when you're in the political spotlight? The impact of this case could ripple out and influence how media outlets like The View and other platforms approach their coverage of political figures and celebrities. Could this set a dangerous precedent that discourages free speech on public figures, or could it be a wake-up call to media organizations to hold themselves accountable for the statements they make, especially in a time when misinformation can spread like wildfire? What we're seeing is more than just a courtroom drama. This is a crucial moment in the ongoing conversation about the boundaries of free speech and media responsibility. The outcome of this case could change the landscape of public discourse, making journalists, TV hosts, and even social media influencers think twice before making sweeping, potentially defamatory statements about anyone in the public eye. As we watch this lawsuit unfold, it's clear that it's not just about one comment or one individual. It's about much larger, far-reaching implications that could reshape the media landscape. This case is now acting as a catalyst for a much-needed conversation on the ethical responsibilities of the media, the balance between free speech and defamation, and the consequences of unchecked public discourse. At the heart of this case is a fundamental question: how much power do media outlets have in influencing public opinion, and should they be held accountable when their words damage someone's reputation? The stakes are high. If a powerful media outlet like The View can be legally challenged for its coverage, it could set a precedent for other public figures to take legal action against similar statements. But it's not just about the power of words. It's about how those words ripple out and affect real lives. In today's world, where information travels faster than ever, media outlets are more influential than at any point in history. A single broadcast, tweet, or news segment can shape the public's view on politics, celebrities, or even world events. That kind of influence demands responsibility. Fetterman's legal action isn't just a personal fight. He's shining a light on a critical issue. Media platforms must think critically about how their statements will be received and the potential consequences of those words. But the larger implications go even further. This case could force a reconsideration of how media outlets, particularly politically charged ones like The View, approach the portrayal of public figures. It's not just about ensuring accuracy, but also about fostering a culture of respect, responsibility, and truth in journalism. If this case creates a shift toward more accountable journalism, it could have a domino effect on all media industries, encouraging better practices across the board. Moreover, the conversation surrounding this lawsuit forces us to confront a deeper societal issue. How do we protect individuals from harm in an age where public perception can be so easily manipulated? A media environment where misinformation or defamatory comments can spread like wildfire has real-world consequences. The emotional and professional toll on a public figure wrongly accused or unfairly maligned can be devastating. This case highlights the growing need for media outlets to weigh their words carefully, considering not only the public's right to know, but also the potential harm that could result from spreading unverified or misleading statements. If Fetterman's case succeeds, we could see a shift in how public figures handle media scrutiny, possibly making it more common for people to fight back legally when they feel wronged. This could have a ripple effect on other public figures, and could even change how media companies navigate their content strategies, with a greater emphasis on fact-checking, fairness, and restraint in their commentary. At the same time, if Fetterman's lawsuit is dismissed, it may set the tone for future disputes, reinforcing the idea that media outlets can, to a large extent, say what they want without facing real legal consequences. This could have profound consequences for how the media continues to engage with public figures, especially in the increasingly polarized environment we find ourselves in. As this case plays out, we must keep in mind the core values of our society, the balance between protecting individuals from harmful falsehoods and safeguarding the free flow of ideas. It's a tricky line to walk, but one that will shape the future of public discourse and media ethics in profound ways.
I would not take the flu shot, and I'll tell you why, because this is what Cochrane and BMJ have found. People who take the flu shot are protected against that strain of flu. They're 4.4 times more likely to get a non-flu infection. And you might find, and a lot of people do, that they get the flu shot and then they get sick. You're usually not getting the flu. You're getting something that is indistinguishable from the flu, because the flu shot gives you something called pathogenic priming. It injures your immune system so that you're more likely to get a non-flu viral upper respiratory infection. In fact, the Pentagon published a story, and you can cite this, it's by Wolfe, W-O-L-F-E, in January of this year, in which they said that the flu shot not only primes you for flu, but it primes you for coronavirus. Published a story, and you can cite this, it's by Wolfe, W-O-L-F-E, in January of this year, in which they said that the flu shot not only primes you for flu, but it primes you for coronavirus.
For your take on the situation, one thing's for sure. This lawsuit is more than just a personal battle between Fetterman and The View. It's part of a larger conversation about the responsibility of, as the legal battle between Senator Fetterman and The View continues to make headlines. One burning question persists. Will this case set a new precedent for how media outlets are held accountable for their statements? The outcome of this lawsuit could have wide-reaching effects on the future of media and defamation law. It's not just a battle over one individual's reputation. It's a potential turning point that could redefine the rules of the game for public figures and the media alike. If Fetterman wins his case, it could send a clear message that public figures can and will fight back against harmful statements made by influential media platforms. We could see an increase in defamation lawsuits, with more public personalities standing up against what they perceive as misrepresentation or undue criticism. This could prompt media outlets to be far more cautious in their commentary, knowing that their words could have real legal consequences. But the question of whether this will set a new precedent isn't a simple one. There are significant challenges to consider. Public figures like Fetterman are often subject to public scrutiny, and the courts have historically been hesitant to curtail the freedom of speech, especially when it comes to political figures or those with significant media presence. If the case is dismissed or ruled in favor of The View, it might reinforce the idea that media outlets, particularly talk shows with millions of viewers, have broad protection under free speech laws. However, even if Fetterman's lawsuit is unsuccessful, the mere fact that he's challenging the status quo has already started a larger conversation about the limits of free speech in the media. Legal experts, journalists, and the public are all watching this case unfold, and the discussion around it could influence future rulings in similar cases. At the very least, it's already shining a light on the blurred lines between free speech, defamation, and journalistic ethics. Some might argue that setting a new precedent, one that favors accountability, could have a chilling effect on public discourse. Media outlets might become more hesitant to offer their bold, candid opinions, especially when it comes to controversial political figures. In a time when bold discussions are more important than ever, could this case have unintended consequences? Could it make media outlets more cautious, potentially stifling the very free speech it seeks to protect? On the flip side, if Fetterman succeeds, it could open the door to a wave of legal action from public figures who feel their reputations have been harmed by media outlets, potentially forcing a shift in how journalists, talk shows, and news networks operate. Media entities might be more inclined to prioritize accuracy and fairness, understanding that any slip-up could lead to costly legal repercussions. As we wait for the outcome of this case, one thing is certain: it's a moment of reckoning for both the media and public figures. The way this case unfolds could set the tone for how future defamation suits are handled, especially in an era where public opinion is shaped by 24/7 media cycles and viral content. In the end, whether or not this lawsuit sets a legal precedent, it's already forcing us to re-examine the role the media plays in shaping public discourse, and whether there should be consequences when those words go too far. As the lawsuit between Senator Fetterman and The View continues to evolve, it forces us to confront a crucial question. How far can media outlets go when commenting on public figures? Fetterman's legal battle isn't just about one statement or one show. It's a battle over how media shapes public discourse and the responsibility that comes with that power. Whether you agree with his actions or not, the case raises significant issues about accountability, free speech, and the delicate balance between the two. In a world where public figures are under constant scrutiny, Fetterman's lawsuit invites us to consider the potential consequences of unchecked media power. It challenges us to think critically about how much responsibility media personalities and platforms should bear for their words, and the long-lasting effects those words can have on an individual's reputation. At the same time, it forces us to question where we draw the line between freedom of speech and the protection of personal integrity. Regardless of the lawsuit's outcome, it's clear that this case will be remembered as a pivotal moment in the ongoing conversation about media ethics, defamation law, and the rights of public figures. And with the digital age amplifying voices like never before, it's more important than ever to understand the weight of the words we consume and the impact they can have on our society. As we continue to watch the story unfold, one thing is clear: the implications of this case will echo far beyond the courtroom, shaping future discussions about media responsibility and the role of free speech in modern democracy. Stay tuned as this dramatic legal battle unfolds, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts with us below. What do you think? Does Fetterman have a case, or is this just another media spectacle?